Good evening. That wasn't too hard, was it? Good evening and welcome to the 121st On the Nail Literary Gathering organised by the Limerick Writers Centre, supporting arts and culture in Limerick since 2008. Anyone who wants to read at the open mic, please let Dominic know before it begins in approximately an hour's time. Welcome once again to the People's Museum of Limerick, our third month at this wonderful venue. We look forward to a fruitful association with the museum as our regular venue for our monthly On the Nail Literary Gathering. This month, the launch of Second Sight, an anthology of writing from the Limerick Writers Centre Creative Writing Class for Older People 2019, plus the open mic. The anthology will be launched by Liz Kelly, Director of Mountains to the Sea Book Festival and a cultural producer with Galway 2020. Second Sight, edited by award-winning poet Ron Carey. You will find within these pages stories and poems that lift the spirits, gentleness, poetic insight, tragedy, joy, loneliness, humour, love of life, or simply love itself. Here you will find the work of some of the best writers and poets who attended our classes for older people during 2019. And our first speaker tonight is our Director of the Limerick Writers Centre, Mr. Dominic Taylor.
Good Tom, and thank you all for joining us. And I would also like to thank the management and the staff of the People's Museum of Limerick for making this venue available to us. It's important and it's often meaningful for us to have the support of venues like the People's Museum and the Limerick Civic Trust who run the project. I just want to say a few words about the Limerick Writers Centre and the writing course which we've run now for 3 years for older people. I think there is something really special when a group of people come together with like-minded purpose, and I feel that the benefits and rewards of being in a community of practice, in the company of like-minded others, needs to be celebrated. Of course, our course offers a shared experience that allows individuals to rise and challenge themselves into unveiling their creative potential. From absolute beginners to the more experienced participants, we offer something that would be impossible for someone working alone to experience. The group experience helps develop realistic goals and develop a creative path for participants. And a lot of the success of this course is down to our tutor, Ron Carey, poet, teacher, and skilled facilitator. Ron, like another Limerick writer, Frank McCourt, came to writing and publishing late in life, and we feel that his story, like Frank's, has been an inspiration to others who also feel that because of life commitments, they did not get a chance to uncover their creative talents. We're extremely lucky to have such a teacher involved with us. Not only does he offer trust and support, but he gently pushes participants into seeing the potential everyone has within. This is probably the real lasting creativity that happens during the course, where the participants develop a self-awareness of themselves as writers and artists. And our work at the centre is to advance the artistic development of writers and foster a thriving literary community. I'm delighted that once again we've been able to publish some of the work created during the course, and as I said, this is our third anthology of such work, and the book Second Sight is our 98th book the Limerick Writers Centre has published under its community publishing programme since 2008. All of those 98 books are not just works of literature, but are a physical manifestation of creativity. Tonight, we celebrate the launch of this new anthology of writing, Second Sight. It is, I believe, an important cultural and artistic event, and we're delighted to launch it here in the People's Museum of Limerick, a place dedicated to celebrating the lives of the ordinary people of Limerick. Places like the People's Museum and the Limerick Writers' Centre deserve your support. I'd like to thank all those involved in this production, and once again we are delighted to put these private acts of writing into public space. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dominic. And now, Ron Carey, editor of the Anthology.
Away are they? First of all, congratulations. Just the Anthology is really terrific. All your hard work paid off, and some of you told me you couldn't do it, and you're in here. The stories and poems that appear in Second Sight were born in the fertile imagination of you, the writers, and some even grew up in the workshops of 12 Barrington Street, where I like to think that their family, which includes Dominic and myself, have helped to raise them and send them out into the world to meet everyone. Within the covers of this book you will find ordinary people, troubled people, strong people, funny people and amazing people, people just like you. Your ability is to make all these lives real and to explore the world from their viewpoint. They touch us because we know them. They could live in our estate, our apartment block or our town. When I read these poems and stories, I'm knocked out by how quickly you establish a bond with the reader. This is a connection that demands no small amount of skill. But it is belief in yourself that will make the difference in your success. It is belief in yourself that will make the difference in your success. No matter what anyone tells you, good or bad, accept it as their opinion and plough on. Creatively, we are all on a journey, and everyone who buys this anthology will be cheering you on. In this small but important way, we will be supporting the creative heart of Limerick. We will be supporting the Limerick Writers' Centre and this course which they provide for those who have embraced the late promise of their creativity. As always, a word of thanks to Revival Press, who are once again on the side of those whose chances are few, and continue to do outstanding service for the cultural life of Limerick, and therefore the people of Limerick. Finally, I hope we all meet again soon and knock some fun out of this writing mark. And if we do, I hope you will still remember the mantra, thinking about writing is not writing. Talking about writing is not writing. Only writing is writing. Sit down and write.
Vital words from your mentor, Ron Carey. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Liz Kelly, who will officially launch the book. Liz Kelly.
Great start. There doesn't seem to be very much left for me to say after those two wonderful introductions to this fabulous book. As you'll have heard in the introduction, I work in both Galway and Dublin, but I actually live in Limerick. And you may think that's a very impractical proposition altogether to travel here, there, and everywhere for work, but I have two dyed-in-the-wool, born and reared Limerick children who refuse to live anywhere else, and besides which, of course, I'm standing in a room which happens to be looking out on one of my absolute favourite parks in the world, which must have formed part of the inspiration for some of your writing as the leaves change and the seasons change during the year. I was this morning working in a primary school in Galway, in a very, very severely disadvantaged primary school, a deaf school, in which we're creating, engaging with children around storytelling and telling their own stories. And the project is really a celebration of their lives. But I was thinking as I sat there, and we had a little workshop with them where we were talking to them about the stories that were interesting and the stories that weren't interesting. And it took a bit of work to convince them that in the very ordinary, in the very incidental things that happen in all of our lives, there are rich pickings and a rich source of material for telling those stories. So they're an amazing bunch of children who are reading at 12 novels like 1984 and Gulliver's Travels and all of that. And of course reading is such a fundamental part to writing. It's like learning another language. So I very much look forward to reading all of your beautiful work in this incredibly well-produced publication by Revival Press. Congratulations to everybody involved in that. I had the very great pleasure of working for an organisation called Bialkina at national level for 4 years as programme director. And I remember picking up the paper in maybe 2015, late 2015, early 2016, and seeing poetry by one Ron Carey published in the pages of the Irish Times, which does such a wonderful job actually in publishing the work of writers who have not yet been published in this way. And I remember being hugely impressed by that. And at that time we were looking for ways in which to commission and engage older writers and to bring older artists back into focus and back into the mix in terms of public attention, particularly in May of each year. And Ron, that was my first encounter with Ron. And then we commissioned him, and he agreed to work with us that year, 2016, 2017. And it was one of the great pleasures, a real high point of working with Piotr, because he's a total gentleman, and what a fantastic talent, what a fantastic writing talent he is. So you've been very lucky to have had him as a mentor, and he to have had you with whom to work over the past 2 years. I note that it's the third anthology, produced by participants of the course. So it's a real achievement to get your work in here, to get your work published. Some people never make it this far, so this is quite an achievement. And as I said, I very much look forward. It was just handed to me as I walked in the door, so I very much look forward to delving in. I know that some of you have not been published before, and that some have. Such as Pat McLaughlin, bringing out your third book. Where is Pat? Is he here in the room? Congratulations, Pat is in here. Siobhan Healy, who's just begun to write, and has just won a prize as well for her writing, which is really exciting. Marie Studer, I hope I got your pronunciation right there, working on poetry, and John O'Donnell with a wonderful piece about his experiences of the story in Adair in 1996. The one thing I suppose that is particularly interesting about all of this is the therapeutic value of writing, but also the sense that it's in the kind of the unspoken or the hidden that we're all very, very equal, that human experience is very similar on some level, and that the ability to express it and to write it down and unifies us in a way, and it enables us to create that essential common ground that's so very important as we look out into the wider world and the twin evils of what's happening on either side of us in the UK and the United States. So in terms of providing insights and understanding of each other and of the wider world, there is no better way. As Ron has said, thinking about it isn't doing it. I might have to take a leaf out of his book myself, pardon the pun. Most of my writing these days is producing copy for the book festival, which I run at the end of March in Dublin, and then also for Galway 2020, and writing very glamorous things like funding applications and reports and that kind of thing. So I have a secret hankering or a secret ambition to write myself. I'm full of admiration for those of you who pick up the pen and do it. So congratulations. So I'd like to launch this book, declare it launched, set it sail, set it out, crack the bottle of champagne against the bow, and away it goes. And I hope that you all enjoy your evening. It's been a real pleasure, and I'm so honoured to have been asked to come and say a few words about this wonderful hour. So Benar we live, and thank you, Ron, and everybody here for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Liz. Now, the first of our 4 contributors to the book, I'd like to invite Maggie Enright.
prepared for this, so please bear with me. This is a memory from my childhood, and without Ron, I wouldn't be here tonight reading this. It's called A School Day. Row after row, according to rank, they line up like soldiers going into battle. A solid metal key unlocks the mystery of a rural national school. Step after step they trudge, rounded backs bearing their battered bags of knowledge. Little soldiers grind to a halt at an unfamiliar sight. A sudden intake of breath, a gasp of horror, unwilling eyes circle the devastation. Tiny feet, light as air, tread with unease as underfoot eerie crackling sounds mock the unwelcome invasion. Torn copybooks, broken biros, toppers, rubbers, rulers, mutilated pencils litter the timber battlefield. Blobs of black ink on dirty grey floorboards add a sense of wanton desecration. As the foot soldiers collect the dead and wounded, a temporary sense of order restores an uneasy calm. Turbulent thumps invade the short-lived peace as the master, like a possessed drummer, beats on the undeserving desk. Borrowed from a neighbouring tree, a knobbly grey stick with a sense of entitlement waves us forward. Frightened little soldiers again form a line, raising their soft white fingers to meet their punishment. Raw timber meets raw flesh as the strong bear the pain, while the weak emit low squeals and soft moans. Before we face our frenzied foe, I hear you whisper, he's going to kill us all.
Thank you very much, Maggie Enright. Siobhan Healy.
So I think this is the first story I wrote that wasn't about my life. Well, it's got bits of me in it, but it was the first story that surprised me. She is obsessed with roadkill, not eating it like some of her vegan friends. Nothing so involved. She is squeamish after all. She notices the dead and distorted bodies on the roadside and takes it as a portent of things to come. Over several days, she follows the progression from solid corpse to flat stain until there is not even that. Just a trace that lingers in her memory for a while. Some last longer than others, like Dead Badger Bend and Red Squirrel Track. She remembers the fox after the first time she slept with the musician from London. The following morning, on her way to the tube from his place, she passed its dead body, not mangled or rotting, but freshly killed and beautiful. Her heart sank, not a good sign. In fairness, the musician's behaviour was enough to tell her this was not a promising situation. But that obsession took 3 years to run its course from corpse to stain. She passed a dead hare last week. She cried a little to see its perfect body lying so still on its side, not sitting upright and alert like she usually saw them down the back of the field. Nonetheless, she watched over the next few days as it became lumps of hair and muscle, both fascinated and horrified. She wondered, if we had the same attitude to humans, how would that be? To leave the dead bodies on the road and pass them every day, and see how their clothes and organs and muscles became mush. She shivers in revulsion at the thought, yet the thought remains and repeats. She got a licence at 50, old enough to know how much damage she could do to soft bodies in a metal object moving at speed. She hasn't run over any living creatures yet, but she knows it's just a matter of time. When thoughts like this flood her mind at the wheel, and she can feel anxiety creeping into her shoulder muscles and fear weighing on her heart, she says a simple prayer. Please keep me safe on my journey today. There is a postscript. Please keep all living beings safe today. She knows this is a ridiculous ask, to whom or what she doesn't even know. She feels the weight of responsibility being lifted, and she is forgiven for being the harbinger of death. She knows what her husband would say. Just because you have the Buddha or Jesus on your side doesn't mean you can drive like a dickhead. He has a point. She knows she sometimes goes too fast around the bends or takes her eyes off the road to try and change radio channels, especially when the presenters annoy her. Then, one day, it happens. She is driving into town, her favourite part of the road opens up, and she can see out over the whole valley. She imagines the car sailing over the hill and taking flight. Florence is singing her lungs out on the radio. She feels like anything is possible. She skids around the bend and goes into a spin on some gravel. The fully loaded forestry lorry meets her head on and crushes her little car like a Coke can, and she becomes today's roadkill. She is running down the road completely free, animals on either side, fox, badger, hare, rabbit, running with her, paws, claws and feet. Cat, dog, bird, rat, fur, feather, skin, all glowing. There is no effort in this running. It is liquid movement, blissful energy pouring through her light body. They are not hunter or prey. There is nowhere to go, just the joyous, endless movement. In all her imaginings of the afterlife, it was nothing like this. So liberating, so vivid, so alive. Meanwhile, the Gardaí have been called, the firemen too. They free her car and lift her lifeless body out. It's a bloody, broken mess. The ambulance takes away her remains. There is a special unit from Limerick City to remove all the bodily fluids. It takes a few hours. Apart from little pieces of debris, nobody would know. Her husband is not the kind to build a shrine on the side of the road to mark the spot.
Thank you very much, Siobhan Healy. Tom McGilligan.
This is a short story called Condemnation. It might be a cynical view at how the homeless are cared for. I think it's a good time of the year to maybe speak about it. Or indeed maybe a mention of our beloved health service. So, it's a kind of a chance meeting in the park. You'll see from where it is, it might even be over here. But. So, one hot day last summer, Packie Brady, a senior administrative officer of the health service, was seated on a park bench reading the Daily on his way to work. Gold-plated pensions for civil servants, pity the homeless with the headline. A thin man with grubby yellow blanket slung over his shoulder ambled along the footpath. He had a pimpled, lightly bearded face with a flat nose. His eyes were downcast, occasionally raising them to glance at Brady. He plonked down in a clumsy manner beside Brady, joking him. "Feel free to share my bed. No breakfast, I'm afraid. Would you have a cigarette, please?" he asked. Brady offered him one from a packet of two. "I hope you don't mind me taking two. I'm addicted and stony broke." Brady was miffed at his greed, but not about to challenge it. "How many a day?" "Too many," said Brady. "My name is Albert, and you are?" he asked. "Packie," muttered Brady, not wanting to disclose any more. "Christian, heathen or civil servant?" "Neither," lied Brady. "'Tis distant, you seem. From Pakistan, are you?" Brady did not reply. "The medics in there told me I was dying," he said, pointing to the hospital where Brady worked. "Sorry to hear it." "You're going to die soon," they informed me. "Is that a fact?" "No need to tell me," I said. "I'm fine, only for what's wrong with me. Isn't that the way of things?" Brady got up to leave. "Don't go. Not that I mind being alone. been there most of my life. But my father told me he was an outsider. Dr. Cleverhead said that I was living in my own inner space. Whatever that meant. Between the two of them, I didn't know whether I was in or out. Must go, said Brady. Listen, one evening during a Shemazlin surgery, the doctor tranquilized me with a syringe full of yellow gunge when I was least expecting it. The same fella wouldn't know his asthma hole in the wall. You don't ever want to be committed in there. Have you ever been in that hospital? No, like Brady. Your crowd, the hospital administrators, record tish-tosh notional data between tea and smoke breaks of absolutely no sense or sincerity. And for what? Posterity, he said, damning Brady and Dominic. In admissions, I met lazy arse, the porter with the dearly bought complexion and cells of ignorance hanging off his puffy jaws. Do you know that he's the dead spit of you? How are you related, he asked. Lazy arse, or Christy Butler to give him his correct title, was a bone lazy first cousin of Brady's, thick as a double plank. He'd been pulled into the job just like himself by Larry the Fixer Daly, the local TD. I'll be off now, good luck, said Brady. So you're off, are you? Just like the crowd in there, off your head. It won't take me a minute to tell you what they did to me. I have an appointment, said Brady, fobbing him off. He sniggered in a mocking way, guffawing with his hand held over his gob, leaving a space for his fagged chimney out. An appointment? Don't make me laugh. How many years were you waiting? Well, that's the best of all. Not me. I got an immediate admission from Dr. Cleverhead surgery in a cab I didn't order. Free travel, I suppose, because I hadn't a bob. Two white-coated attendants sat either side of me, nattering away. Another humpy man sat in the driver's seat with his cabbie's hat on back to front, eating a crunchy bar, while the remaining one of the arresting quartet picked his nose and feasted on it. They frog marched me into the hospital. Brady shuffled about in impatience. Wait till you hear. A spotty-faced nurse arrived and pulled a yellow screen around me. Sit, she said, and I did. 2 hours passed before the doc and his cohorts trooped in. Okay, doc, spit it out. The bad news and I'll be off. Any chance of a fag? I sat down. Parking ticket stuck on my file for the long wait. X-rays, questions, injections, anaesthetics, probes, biopsies, colonoscopies, endoscopies. And after an eternity, I was rolled into the observation couch. They jacked me up, pulled up my bonnet, looked at the tick-tock of my lifetime clock and battery, checked my plugs, tire pressure, oil and filter, and looked on my gullet and up my exhaust pipe. Imagine that, he said. Must go, said Brady, before being stalled once again. How tough. Better to be talked to than be talked about. I quizzed them on blood pressure, cholesterol, heart beating, pulse, liver diabetes, sexually transmitted diseases, everywhere except the upstairs section, the noggin, the lost marbles department. Didn't want to go there after the last time and tell them that the free electricity they were into me short-circuited. I felt like a Christmas tree after it. Eyes twinkling, ears tingling, and ears tingling with tinnitus. And when I saw 3 Dalmatians dancing in hornpipe and eating mince pies, I knew for sure my main switch would tripped. And all of this to tell me that I was dying. The thought of the mark struck me. I wasn't ready for that. I'll condemn the undertaker. Brady passed him another cigarette. Where was I? Anyway, they took me upstairs. Getting a bed was impossible. Did you know that they have double-decker trolleys now? Young patients on top and infirm on the bottom. I jumped up on the top deck. An old codger lay beneath me still as a corpse. Too late for him. The waiting list had beaten him. I really must go now, said Brady. Where are you off to? Sit down. I haven't told you yet what happened the next morning. I was frisked off, wearing a blue paper cap and gown. My behind sticking out. Jabs in the backside made me feel like a pincushion and drowsy, but still bright enough to notice the busty nurse that leaned over me, offering an endowment of erotic flesh and lustful temptation from pouting cherry lips. Nothing wrong in that department, I can tell you, until Dr. Prove arrived with a sledgehammer of an injection that dispersed any sexual fantasies that cared to venture. I lay on my side and looked out at the red brick chimney stack that belched smoke like a large cigar. Near the morgue, Condon, the body snatcher, lighted behind the hearse, vulture-like, thinking that a corpse would soon be in the offing. He looked up at me with his smiling grin, beckoning me with his thumb towards the open hearse door. I returned an erect middle finger at him. A sudden dart of pain shot up my rear end. Hey, goddammit, what are you doing down there? I shouted to Dr. Probe. Oh, just a little probe, he says. Probe my arse, says I. Okay, he says, I will. Dangling a slithery endoscope like a wriggly black snake with one bright eye to meander up my tailpipe. Come down to die, my arse. I won't be told when I'm going to die, no sir. I'll pick my own expiry date. Yes, next week, or perhaps even today. He clasped his hands, closed his eyes and sang Adios amigo in a wistful tone. Brady tiptoed off, breaking into a trot, but had to stop before the exit, tossing the cigarettes. Beside him stood Albert, hands on hips, giving him a penetrating eye, fag grip between his teeth, without a puff taken out of him. Dying, how are you, thought Brady. I wasn't always like this, you know, homeless, until I made the lonely journey into myself and never returned, he said. Tears. He squinted over Brady's shoulder in the direction of the hospital, scared as hell and ashen-faced. He said, look behind you. Dr. Probe and Dr. Weissbach are coming with the jump plates and the slithery black snake. Brady turned around. There was nobody there. His opposite snatched a cigarette package from his hand and ran off. Outside the hospital on the busy street, a gawky crowd gathered. A man was lying halfway under a double-decker bus, holding a cigarette packet in his right hand. The ambulance arrived, with its blue light flashing and siren blaring. A white sheet was pulled over the prone man. Fat-bellied clouds as they blew over the bright summer's day. Brady, threw the daily in a rubbish bin, looked up into heaven's direction and wondered if Albert had made it. Thank you.
That report from the front line was brought to you by Tom McGilligan. Onwards and upwards with John McGuigan.
Now, my poem won't take as long as Tom's story did, but hopefully be as entertaining. The Wind of Change. In 1802, Wordsworth wandered over vales and hills onto a field of golden daffodils, not knowing the effect fossil fuel consumption would have on the lakes, the trees, and the way we behave. Nothing was done for a century or more, threatening our very existence to the core. Irish cows are a major contributor to climate change, greater maybe than passenger air travel. They eat buttercups and daisies out on the range, creating problems for politicians to unwrap. Trump complains about their flatulence, but the cows and the daffodils continue to dance. In 2019, things are starting to change. The world's children are leading the charge to have consumption patterns modified in the range and improve the air we breathe by those at large, so the fish can swim in unpolluted waters and the children's efforts leading to political orders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John McGuigan. Now, if anybody else from the Anthology wants to contribute, they can do so in part 2, which has the intrepid open micers biting at the leash. We'll take a short break while we consider the situation. Thank you. Yes, everybody, we're going to start shortly. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's the open mic, and as I said before, and I'll say it again, anybody who's in the book is more than welcome to give us a short extract. Anyway, the open mic. It's my pleasure to introduce the wonderful repository of knowledge from the Bird Hill area, Michael Durack.
I'd like to read two short memory poems going back to my late teens and early 20s, not today nor yesterday. The first one is dedicated to one of my oldest friends. We were desk mates at secondary school and flatmates in college and colleagues for a big part of my working life. So the poem is called Reach Out for Danny Grace. On the final night of Trinity term, we raised a glass at 3 in Cassidy's of Camden Street, imbibing not too wisely and not well. Later, in our flat on Rathmines Road, I strummed raucous chords from my first cheap guitar. Next day, with bag and baggage, I hit out for home, and you boarded a student flight for JFK. The letters, with their sprawling hieroglyphics, came edged in blue and red. I relished those tales of an Irish cook in a Wildwood diner, and how once, pacing the Jersey shore after a late shift, your ears picked out familiar strains from an entertainment hub. The Four Tops pounding their irresistible Motown beat. And I wished I could reach out and be there. And the second poem goes back a few years before that. It recalls the beginnings of an ill-fated late teen romance.
Oh, yeah.
Our mother's looking for you.
There's a bit of poetic license at work here, and the girl didn't wear hoops, as it appears in the poem. And the setting was not East Clare either. It was actually Newport, where two of the contributors to the tonight's magazine hail from.
Our brothers.
McLaughlin and Cossigan. Anyway, in the interests of certain wordplay effects, the changes had to be made. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. It's called Star Spangled Banner. Fiddle notes jabbing the East Clare night. Bar doors flushed the babble to the streets. And we went, let's get out of here. Though neither spoke a word. Beyond the furthest street light, beech leaves whispered. A tittering stream eavesdropped. Ignore them, you insisted. Kiss me again. The sky wore polka dots and you wore hoops. I vowed allegiance to those stars and stripes.
Another extract from the ongoing saga that is Durax. Now then, Tim Cunningham.
Congratulations to Dominic and everybody connected with the centre, doing incredible work, absolutely incredible work. I was living in England for a long time, and quite a few of my friends who are can you hear this? Quite a few friends who are Jewish are so incredibly scared with Brexit, you would not believe it. This is really referring to two separate people. One whose grandparents left Germany because of the pogroms and just to stay alive, and were delighted to be able to get to England, and the other grandparents leaving Austria. At the moment, with both families, want to have they're entitled to a European passport. The irony is, to get a European passport, the one has to apply to Germany and the other has to apply to Austria. It's called passport. The girl is applying for a passport in the country her grandmother fled. The country of Kristallnacht and of yellow stars, of train wheels grinding towards concentration camps and smoke. The girl is applying for a passport in the country her grandmother fled. Here we have no broken glass, no yellow stars like targets pinned to cokes, no train wheels grinding from London to provincial camps, no smoke. But the girl is applying for a passport in the country her grandmother fled. Perhaps she hears an echo of broken glass. Perhaps her midnight constellations have dimmed. Perhaps she feels the wheels of history are grinding in reverse. Perhaps she is quite sensitive to smoke. This girl applying for a passport in the country her grandmother fled. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim Cunningham. Kieran Bevel.
I'm going to read just one poem, but my father always told me if you sing a sad song, you should then follow it with something a bit more optimistic. So I'm going to read two. The first one is called Sectioned. Doors leading to the light are locked. They have all the keys and aces. A Van Gogh print crooked on the wall. Vortex of stars sucks me in. Scary, scary night. I dwell amongst tormented faces. They asked, who is your next of kin? I don't know how another can fit her skin. In this Mars hotel, there are scarlet begonias in the dining room. We are the merry pranksters who must pass the acid test. Some from the Wizard of Oz, others from Frankenstein. Chief Broom is sweeping us into the story. Nurses stand and stare at zombies who are grateful to be dead. I wrestle on Kesey's team with Wolfe, Kerouac and Ginsberg in my head. Where is the girl I eloped with? Will she take me to my pleasant hill? In a dream I remembered who I was. There was rain like loud applause when I slipped fish-like from the hands of God. I am still and silent in the keeper's net, words imprisoned here with me, while I am filled with sorrow and regret. One shimmers like a silver key, hope unlocking mysteries. But I remember such was bait that hooked me to this fate. The other is called Cinnamon, and because it's December, and it's a memory of my mother. I remember your lips mumbling in prayer, your fingers fumbling with the beads. I was too young to know you had cares and broken dreams. Then one day I saw you cry and didn't ask why. Your floral apron pressed to my face, my school bag flung for the embrace. I tried to trace the fading memories of you, but time, it has erased all but few. When I smell cinnamon, I remember you in December. In the supermarket today, I walked to the aisle where nutmeg, candied peel and glazed cherries were arrayed. That made me smile. Baking Christmas cakes with Mario Lanza belting out carols, you harmonized endearingly out of tune. I stole a cherry and you scolded me in feigned rebuke. Singing at the kitchen sink, aromatic potions strewn about, vanilla essence and little mysterious bottles from the out-of-reach cupboard. Your magnetic laughter drew me to you. I lingered like a loitering moon in the morning sky. You were baking memories every day, the bread I feed on now. In the evening you put satsumas in my stocking and a fist of roses too, caps for the gun and holster which I already knew from their hiding place in your camphor-scented wardrobe. Then when you thought I was asleep, you had a glass of sherry to wet your lips. Your cheeks were rosy by the glowing fire, but your eyes were veiled in mist. On Christmas Day you laughed and cried, and I wondered if you were happy or sad, but now I know you were lonely for the precious ones who died, and to be with the ones you loved were glad.
Thank you, Kieran Bell. John Smith.
Thank you, Tom. Tonight, I'm not going to read one of my poems, but my favorite by Bridget Wallace, who was cremated yesterday. I went to the moving service at Shannon Crematorium. We've lost such a great person and a wonderful poet. Bridget and I were part of the first sextet collection of poetry for emerging poets, edited by Edward O. Dwyer and published by Revival Press in 2010. This was Sextet. Bridget was the last of all 6 of us to actually publish her first collection, Shadow Horses, in 2016. It's a splendid book, and I'm going to read the first poem in it, Rifleman. And what gets me is Bridget is no longer with us, but her writing will never pass. Rifleman. In memory of my uncle, Patrick O'Halloran, Royal Irish Rifles, killed in action, September 7th, 1918, aged 18. The earth rose up in great dark waves, quickening the tattered ghosts that clung to the wire and the broken pickers, and the world was a black widow's web woven from war's wreckage. Fear was a thundering march in my head when I plunged into the alien dark that even heroes dread. My hammering heart was silenced, and my eyes gave back the blackness of the empty sky at midnight. I opened my eyes and reached for my rifle, but it passed through my fingers as though it were made of smoke. Was it yesterday that, blindfolded, I stripped, cleaned, and reassembled it and, snug to my shoulder, cradled the seasoned wooden stock? Was I too young to study a rifle's parts, to be a soldier before I became a man, to fall with all the other rifles at Ypres, Messines, and the Somme? In the failing light, I saw my mother coming down the line, smiling, wiping her hands on her apron. She passed through the wire as though she were made of smoke and knelt beside me in the bloody dirt. "Get up, child," she whispered. "Your work here is done. Your life is a million dust motes dancing in the last rays of a blighted sun." I reached for her outstretched hand, then turned for one last look at the dressing station where I lay, with a simple wooden cross on my chest. I saw the stretchers neatly stacked. An orderly was writing in his book, "Rifleman, 21659 O'Halloran Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John Finchmith. And now we have Catherine Keenan.
Okay, so I'm going to read the first part of a short story today, and it's called How to Become a Valkyrie. On the winter solstice, go to the high hill. As you shut the door of your home behind you for the last time, hold your breath. Beg the Deesir to muffle the squeak of hinges, then run. Shiver all you want at the blast of the northern gales, but put it out of your mind. Focus only on what lies ahead. You have never been on top of the high hill. Your grandmother, before she left to walk Hell's roads, warned you that it was no place for those still believing. Her grandfather, she claimed, would go there with the men of old to make sacrifices to the gods. Thor demanded boar flesh for the strength to keep the giants away. Freyr needed the heart of the first fallen of the spring to let the sun's warmth reach the earth. And Odin always took a single man, took him to be hanged and stabbed with a spear. Your grandmother told you that on the underside of every single blade of grass that grew on that high hill, the blood of Odin's gifts could still be seen. Your father scoffed. No need to be filling her head with nonsense when there's plenty of things down here to be paying attention to. I didn't hear you say that when the goats needed fresh pasture, your grandmother said. There must be some powerful nonsense that keeps an upstanding farmer like you off that hill. He subsided after that, though not without spitting into the hearth. But you never saw him, or anyone else, climb that hill. A small part of you wishes ground was not covered with snow, so that you might check the grass blades for yourself. Your feet make soft crunching noises as they descend into the hard-packed, long frozen snow. You are not afraid of leaving footprints. By the time your kin will follow the trail, it will be much too late. Perhaps it is a tale, crafted like a fence to keep children out of mischief. You fervently hope that it isn't. If you wish to become a Valkyrie, or so the tales go, you must take a knife. Not any knife, not one used to chop the turnips or gut the game, but one that has been used to kill a man. It does not have to still bear blood. Tools always remember, even when people try to make them to forget. It should have flint in the handle, and its blade should be of sharpest iron. You took the knife that was used to kill your brother. You were 12 then, barely more than a slip, bright-eyed and diligent and utterly unnoticed. Your brother Abel at 17 stood taller than some warriors at 25. His voice boomed constantly like thunderclaps. His shoulders were almost too broad to fit through the door, and the arrogant flash of his eye was like the first glint of moonlight on a sword. Your family called him a man then, when he seemed proud and strong and walked like the world belonged to him alone. Afterwards, they said he was a lad, much too young to get tangled in feuds such as these. You wondered, then, how he could be old and young at the same time. You, after all, were only 12. As you look up from the base of the hill, a flurry of snow whirls downwards, as if to push you away. You must reach the top before first light. If the tales are to be believed, the Allfather will only come for you Valkyries at night. If the tales are not to be believed, you must reach the top anyway, to hide from your family. Bjorn Greenson from the farmstead 2 miles away was also 17, and tall, and strong, and arrogant. Over ale cups, he lost to your brother at arm wrestling, drunkenly declared a feud, and before anyone else could get between them, sank the knife between your brother's ribs, and that's where I'm going to leave it.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Claire Dollard.
Hi everybody. Congratulations to everyone in Second Sight, especially for those that are published for the first time. Personal development. How Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. What a lovely verse. I'm sure most of you learned that as a child and sang it happily, along with many more nursery rhymes. We were always told that songs and rhymes were very good for our development into adulthood. So we then, as responsible adults, proudly pass them on to our own children. Now there are a few generations who have sang these songs, word for word, innocently, not realising for a second how barbaric they really were. Let's go back to Humpty. He was falling apart and nobody could help him. It was obvious, really, that he was in the midst of a breakdown. He couldn't pull himself together again, and what were we doing? Singing about him. Then there was Jack and Jill, innocently going up the hill to fetch a pail of water. What happens? They both end up in a heap at the bottom. Were they pushed? Was somebody lurking up there waiting for them? Or did Jill try to kill Jack with the insurance money and then accidentally trip herself afterwards? Sorry, glasses. No. Sorry. Yes, Jill was killing Jack afterwards. Yeah. Sometimes, as children, we all held hands and sang together, Ring-a-ring-a-rosy, going around in a circle, and we all fell down in peals of laughter. What were we laughing at? The poor misfortunes who died in the Great Plague in 1665, that's what. And don't even get me started on the old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. So what did she do? She gave them some broth without any bread and whipped them all soundly and sent them to bed. Heavens preserve us. Quick, ring the adoption agency. And more to the point, teach her about contraception. We should be ashamed of ourselves filling our innocent children's heads with all this violence and death to prepare them for life. At least as we enter our teenage years, we can pick the songs we like ourselves and know what the words mean. Another big step in our development. When I was a teenager a few years ago, myself and my few friends went to see a musical called Grease 4 times. You might recall it. It starred John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, affectionately known as Olivia Newton-Bomb. Our favourite song was called We Go Together. This is how it went. We go together like Rama Lama Lama Kadinga Da Ding Dong. We remember forever Do Up Shabada One Yippee Boom. Chang Chang Changy Shang Shabop. Sorry, I'm getting carried away with those fabulously educational lyrics. By now, take note, words have become lyrics. I think young words must go into adult lyrics. I wonder, is there any middle ground between wordhood and lyrichood? Just a thought. As we emerge from teenager to adulthood, we start to frequent our local pub, another great milestone in our development. We choose the one where the sing-songs are the stuff of legend. Picture the scene. You're quietly sipping your drink and an impromptu sing-song begins. Dominic in the corner is asked up to sing. Oh no, I couldn't possibly, haven't a note in my head. Oh no, I can't, no, oh all right, just the one. And he's off. Mic in hand, he launches into the Beatles. Something in the way she moves attracts me like no other mother. You smile to yourself, but you clap him anyway. You're not even finished clapping when he starts a second song, Billy Joel's You May Be Right. You made the rice, I made the gravy, but it just might be a tuna fish you're looking for. He's on a roll now and gives a great rendition of Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. which goes on for about a week. His best line being, saving his life from his warm sausage tea for me. He doesn't even notice half the crowd are laughing at him, the others clapping to get rid of him. But he's not the only culprit for singing the wrong words. Pat suddenly gets up, uninvited, and launches into some Christmas songs, though it's only October. You join in anyway, as you know the song Band-Aids, Do They Know It's Christmas? And then top of her voice you hear Marion belting out the line, the greatest gift they'll get this year is flies. Next song up to be murdered is the simple Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Surely you think to yourself, they'll get these words right. After all, this is a kid's song and they are fully developed adults. But no, apparently, he'll go down and hit the tree. Not a very happy Christmas in that household then. All too soon the night comes to a close, and as is the Irish tradition, we stand up proudly to join in our own national anthem. Shoulders back, head held high, you start. Trina Fina fall. It's okay, you don't need to stand up. The whole pub is on its feet, bellowing out the words, and then for the grand finale, you hear somebody, is it yourself? Or maybe you? Singing the immortal lines. Lake on the square, we love of now live, shoving Connie around the field. That's personal development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire Dodd. Now, short extract from the wonderful and wacky word, cosmic word even, or Oran Rhyme.
Thank you, Tom. I think. This one's called, it's 3 freshly squeezed ones, new. This one's called The Mild-Mannered Librarian's Well-Worth Transformations. I've wondered if this hunger comes from my true love, if my bloodlust longings will in death be resolved, if my virtuoso killings are sanctioned from above, if my fever-dream visions and bookish vestibules divine how the moon and I shall be as one. In gnarled witty ends of our Lonquin books, in doomed before pilot bohemian looks, in dead arenas of career, in frittered down lives, in coiford laughter therapy and red satin smiles, these are my daylight librarian times. All my life I have lived these lives, as my wolf's self is hidden from book borrower's eyes. I am that longing only murder satisfies. With order and precision I live my lie. I shelve books and wait till the moon arrives. And the moon is my lover who makes love bitter. For hers is the arena where innocents are butchered, and mine are the eyes that will see death forever. And these are my claws that clutch dead letters as the night-like metropolis howls in the emptiness. And they should go, ooh, in that one. Okay, this one's called Hymn of the Executive Order. Met a lot of executives recently. We who have done so little long so much. We have acted and reacted despite Sisyphus physics. We answer your queries and question your questions. We power dress for Gucci and annihilate dissension. We dream for the contract and smile through the tears. We who are nothing cannot know fear. We just cannot be sure how or where. We who will search will find our nowheres, our fidelity agreements, daily we re-swear. We stand in line and take these tests. We crunch these numbers, there is no rest. In marriage or divorce or office affairs, our meaning consists in always being there, in having the answers for our people we care.
you know that we love you, and we'll always be there, on time and contracted, most holy customer. Finally, I used to have a lot of night terrors, and this poem emerged from it. Night is this theatre, parcelled in behind curtains, playing beyond these window frames. Night is the groupie, cloying and uncertain, a maudlin gossip betraying other people's games. Night is this symphony of disaster whose acts are pockmarked in chimeras, a lurid review for cheap sellout shows, a Gorman-gassed oracle of lost early hope. Night is the Waking Dead 5 a.m. sitcom, a soap opera inertia I cannot shift from, a measure of memories in glass-eyed toys, a moon's alien arclight on thin Gothic boys. Night's an addict playwright, deranged for a hit, dreaming those dreams from the orchestra pit. She's my Frankenstein stagehand, shifting the scenes, switching on the moon behind these black trees. Night's my dull guest, who always stays for dinner. It's the butler's dark hatred of always being the waiter. She's my routine late arrival turned constant companion, with promises of tomorrow that almost seem to happen.
Thank you, Oren. Mel White.
Just one short poem from me tonight. This is called "Why Can't I Access Anger When I'm Trying to Understand It?" I wrote it because I was feeling a bit angry towards a woman I work with, and I'm not really into this kind of whole thing about blaming people. If you feel bad, I think you kind of have to look at yourself and go, what's going on for me here? So I was trying to just have a look at what was going on inside myself and try and figure out why was I feeling this anger and write about it, and ended up procrastinating and writing a poem instead, I think. So this is "Why Can't I Access Anger When I'm Trying to Understand It?" There's a fairy on my page, wearing boots that leave footprints. I chase her with my pen, pin her wings to the paper, like a butterfly collector. But her small body wriggles to escape, like a child who's being tickled. She squirms free of the pen. I pounce on her again, sketch a Sugan chair beneath her, and grapple with a rope to bind this gossamer mind to the chair. But she slipped away again. She dances across the notebook, taunting me, while I try to remember why I'm angry. I'm not angry. How could I be angry when I'm dancing with a fairy? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mel. Pat O'Connor.
Good evening, folks. I'm going to break with tradition here and read a poem.
Oh, no.
That'll probably start a stampede.
Oh, wow.
Close the door, man. But this is just to show that you can find literature anywhere. And this is from a parish magazine in the Highlands of New Zealand, the Twizzle Chronicle, which advertises things like stump grinding and sump blocking and such things. So this is written by a gentleman called Ian Palmer Smith about a true incident in a batching plant. Batching plant, for anybody who doesn't know, anybody who doesn't live down beside a cement factory, is a small cement factory. And you have to forgive any mispronunciations or poor poetry. In the windswept Bataki, where glaciers scoured the land, the Ministry of Works employed a hydro worker band. of men with trades and expertise to build the power stations, which in good time would light and heat the whole New Zealand nation. 1 mile south of Twizel town, north of mighty Oha, stood a concrete batching plant where workers used their know-how to feed the sites with rock-filled grout and precast tensile beams, a constant flow of concrete for the site construction teams. Graham was the billy boy who kept the Batcher crew supplied with meals and coffee and a famously strong brew of tea which quenched a man-sized thirst and caused a rosy glow to keep at bay the icy chills when cold southeasters blow. He'd do the dishes, sweep and clean, and then survey with pride the room where men could sit at ease, safe and warm inside. He glowed with heartfelt dignity to see the smiling faces when his boys came in for smoko and settled in their places. But one day, after washing up, he went to drain the sink and found the water wouldn't go. The drain was on the blink. He got his plunger splashed around to make the water go, but all it did was start to spread outside across the snow. This wouldn't do, he told himself. His standards must be met. He'd have to get the drain unblocked, so off he went to get equipment for this pressing task. Some wire, a stick, a pump, which when reversed would suck the debris from the gummed-up sump. No matter what was used to try to move this large obstruction, it stayed firm wedged inside the drain, unmoved by poke or suction. So Graham went and got a hose to give a spray around and make the water go back where it should be, underground. Advice came forth in torrents from the crowd who milled about and watched all Graham's efforts to get the blockage out. Had he tried some fencing wire? Had he tried a stick? What about some boiling water? That should do the trick. But one by one the methods tried had failed to make a dent upon the wedge of tea leaves, grease and peelings in the vent. Tomato skins and bacon rind had gathered there in force, and all the other things you find in drains were there, of course. So Graham trudged around to get the big high-pressure hose, with which men sluiced the batcher yard and cement dust which rose in clouds from making concrete for the spillways, dams and weirs, a process which had carried on for many, many years. The hose was like a giant snake stretched out across the earth, with reinforcing in its walls 4 inches in its girth. The only thing that let you know that wasn't some live creature was a handle sticking from its side, that solitary feature. The worldly wise all knew about the strength of this great jet and treated it with keen respect to stop from getting wet. The tap, when opened up too fast, would lift you from the ground, and if you didn't let go quick, you'd get whirled round and round. But Graham, he was well aware of what the jet could do. He hooked on an extension and pushed it well from view into the drain until the end was hidden well from show, before he turned the nozzle on and let the water flow. The pressure in the sunken pipes started to increase, and Graham felt he'd done quite well. No freezing blast of grease, or tea leaves, sludge and bacon rind flew back out from the sewers. That he'd washed away, the plug was plain for all his viewers. They patted Graham on the back and told him he'd done well, and helped him stow away the gear. Soon nobody could tell there'd been a drama there that day. They all began to go. The only sign of any fuss was footprints in the snow. But no one at the batcher plant had been there at its erection. They couldn't know the drains all only ran in one direction, and all the showers and sinks and loos around the batcher sank to meet as one some 50 feet below the septic tank. For all the trades which graced the crew, there wasn't in its number a single soul who laid a claim to have the skills as plumber, and no one round had any doubt the blockage there had been anything but grease and sludge, and now it should be clean. The truth of it was rather more that built up over time, of cement dust and windblown grit, of sand and stone and grime. Washed down the drain with pressure jets to gather at one point, and there set hard as bedrock stone within an elbow joint. Meanwhile, as a fly, you see, this is from just show you how that is. As the block drain drama had unfolded down the line, old Scotsman George, the precast boss, decided it was time to answer nature's daily call and visit the latrine, to sit in regal solitude, relaxed, calm and serene. Now George was nature's gentleman. He wore a shirt and tie, but on this day, it must be said, his spirits weren't too high. He'd had his teeth removed the day before. He still felt pain. His mouth was feeling like it wouldn't ever work again. He sat there feeling very low. Things couldn't get much worse, when far away he heard a sound as though a bomb had burst. He felt alarmed subconsciously and wondered what could cause the sound, as though a train approached him in the water closet. These thoughts had barely crossed his mind when Armageddon struck. A jet of icy water filled his shirt and sleeves with muck. It blasted off his safety hat and sent his glasses reeling, rebounded off the walls and doors, and gushed back from the ceiling. The torrent was relentless, and it showed him no respite. It filled his ears and nose and shirt with debris packed in shite. It threw him up against the wall, which threw him back again, onto liquid icicles erupting from the pan. And so he bounced there back and forth, a leaf at nature's mercy. And if he'd reckoned just before things couldn't get much worse, he now had cause to think again and change his frame of mind. This Antarctic Vesuvius had left him nearly blind. He gasped for air and tried to pull his trousers up again, but crushed ice lava gushing out from that remorseless drain had filled them too. They seemed too small and wouldn't come up high, and so he did the best he could and clasped them to his tie. His whole life flashed across a screen of swiftly rising sludge. He tried to open up the door and found it wouldn't budge. The only way to leave was up. The gap above him beckoned, and if he wasn't going to drown, he mustn't waste a second. His legs had run 100 yards before he reached the ledge, and getting past was harder still. He'd formed a perfect wedge. But the rising tide of effluent was seething all around, and so with a last despairing shove, he spattered to the ground. Across the batcher yard he oozed, indecent in his flight, past the gaping onlookers, who boggled at the sight, not knowing what this creature was which squelched before their view, mumbling Gaelic curses and reeking like a loo. He slithered to his truck and squirted in behind the wheel, festooned with soggy paper flaps and bits of orange peel. He gunned the motor, slipped the clutch, and burned the batcher path, intent in getting home to find some dry clothes and a bath. The saga of the Botcher Drain passed into Botcher lore and joined the host of stories of dramas gone before, but still the men who use manure to make their pumpkins bigger will nod to George and call him Flower and walk by with a snigger. Thanks.
I'm not the only one suffering from the vapours. Fearless Pat O'Connor without a safety net, blindfold or last cigarette. Share that awesome Antipodean batching plant poem with you. Aren't you lucky people? By Jesus. Anyway, moving swiftly on, and he takes subscriptions to the Thistledown Journal, or whatever the name of that Epicurean thing is. Now we have Siobhan Potter, recording me wits.
In the 3 breaths that it takes for you to get to snoring, I watch
watch your face fall backwards through your life to a sleep that threatens to drag me into it. I'm grateful for the hatred that snoring brings. 64 years of hurt cascading takes me beyond what I can do post-orgasm. Breathing, barely. Bed sharing is ridiculous. Bed sharing my bed is ridiculous. Our separate room policy, just that, a policy. I'm not leaving this bed, my pillow. My first thought is never to wake you, tell you to go to your own bed. Sleep is too precious. Before I start thinking about using your own pillow to smother you, I Google narcolepsy. If I can't love you, I can at least diagnose you. And I have a short one. I hope you're being nice to them. Patently, I am being nice to them. The dates. The problems of the world aren't caused by women not being nice to men on dates, rather by the collective not being nice to women and women not being nice to their children. So of course I've been nice to them, except for the ones that behave like children.
Thank you very much, Siobhan Potter. I've been asked by management to ask you, is there anybody out there? That's a good question. Is there anybody out there who contributed to the anthology would like to share it to the wider public? Yes? No? Will we move on? Well enjoyed.
Nessa has been volunteering.
That was safely Nessa.
Wanted. Right, so you might be sorry because my poem isn't a laugh a minute. It's called Motherhood, and I wrote it one Sunday, not inspired by but provoked by a discussion that I happened to hear on the radio where Neil Jordan was discussing his movie Greta from this summer. Some of you may have seen it. Right, so it's called Motherhood. The woman seeking her lost child, the film director explains, analysing his recent production. A horror story, naturally. The protagonist more powerful for being female, a mother, motherhood as pathology. Expletives crash aloud in my head, arms immersed in soapy water. Post-Sunday dinner stock motherhood scenario. I'm doing the dishes for my kids, plus my lost child who with police needs no plate. Which one is she? An amalgam of all. Is that all it was, looking for my lost self? Motherhood, a pathology. Of course, sure enough. What else explains a love that watches, sees, kills and dies? This child of mine, take my life, not hers. Insane, self-preservation flouted on all fronts. Innumerable fantasies lived and lost, beholding and rending of ambitions and desires. Motherhood, singular melody, recast in the tedious apprenticeship of necessary separation, until, weary of protest, I witness silently and powerlessly as life deals my child its unsparing hand, hoping that through it she will forge her enduring self, unrecognised yet by either of us, the desired and costly product of our love.
Think of these things, dear brethren. Now then, a little bit of housekeeping before we go into the dark, lonely night. There are two happenings that might interest you on Saturday. Community open mic is at 11 a.m. on, hang on a minute, it's December the 13th. God. Anybody who decides to print red on black, well, there you have it. Community Open Mic, it's on December the 13th at 11 a.m. It's at the Access campus at Unit J, LEDP, Roxborough, Limerick, behind the Innovation Hub. Everyone is welcome. Poems, stories, and whatever else it is, come and share them with us. And now, for you of a nostalgic bent, and probably led by the intrepid Michael Durach, who, like me, we have a hankering from the old days when winkle pickers were a weapon of choice, and we tried to discard our bicycle chains and bicycle clips before we went into the local hop to pop. I'm talking about the Jive extravaganza at 5 o'clock in St. John's Pavilion on Saturday next. The illustrious orchestra is Tony and the Bluffers. So it's for all of you who won't be looking at the oval ball and are forever young, be there or be square. Now then, tonight, on the nail 121, you heard Nessa Breen, Siobhan Potter, Pat O'Connor, Nell White, Oren Ryan, Claire Dollard, Catherine McKean, Kieran Bevel, John Peachey, Tim Cunningham, Michael Durach, John McGuigan, Tom McGilligan, Shane Vaughan, Healy, and Maggie Enright. And thanks to Liz Kelly for kicking off, and our manager here, who's still alive, luckily. And Limerick Writers Centre, usual request to you good people is to keep writing, keep reading, and keep on keeping on, and have a happy Christmas, and God willing, despite fire and dungeon, and God knows what else, we'll return sometime in the new year, somehow. Good night, happy Christmas.
Thank you.